Okay, well, here's hoping. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me this afternoon. What I thought I'd do is just start with a little bit of my own background, and then I'd go on to talk about what's helped me in leadership over the last 25, 30 years, and hope that some of it might be helpful to all of you. So just a quick bit about my academic background. I studied in the UK, I was brought up in the UK, and I studied geography and French at Manchester University. And then I went on to do my postgraduate teaching degree at Cambridge University. That, I have to say, was a huge advantage for me. So I was very privileged in that respect. And then I actually spent the next 11 years working in boarding schools. I can't imagine now why I did that, but at the time, I really enjoyed it. And that was interspersed with also working in West Africa, where my husband was working. And then I was teaching engineering graduates English in the Côte d'Ivoire in Abidjan, which was a tremendous experience. And I did that for a couple of years. And then eventually we came back to Europe, and because of our work, we ended up in Luxembourg. And that was in 1991, and we've been living here ever since. Our children have gone, but we're still here. And I'm very lucky now to be in the situation where I'm retired, which is wonderful because I wake up every morning and know that I'm on holiday. But I loved what I did, so I hope I can give you a little bit of help today. I worked at the International School of Luxembourg, and I eventually became the director after 25 years there. And I was also part of the European Collaborative for International Schools. And that was very, very helpful for me. I was on the board of trustees there. And as I got more experience in my work, I also did quite a lot of accreditation work for the Council of International Schools. And that's not an inspection. It's a little bit like an inspection, but what it's actually doing is going and visiting schools and seeing if they do what they say they do. And since I've retired, I've continued to do that as a volunteer. So I visit schools. In the last couple of years with the pandemic, it's mostly been online, but I sometimes go there in person. And I spend a week there looking at the school, seeing how things are going, and I write a report at the end of it. But now I also work on reading other people's reports and moderating those reports as well. So that's what keeps me busy, as I've got quite a lot of free time now. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll move on to just talking about the kind of things that have worked for me. They might not work for you as leaders in the future, but hopefully I can give you one or two little tips. For me, the first point, when you go into any kind of organization, it doesn't matter whether it's a school or it's a bank, is to know your audience. And no matter what your job is, you must get to know your staff. It really matters that you talk to them, you know, and you care about them and their families, because loyalty really counts. And without your staff being on your side, your work is going to be a great deal harder, and you're going to have far more unexpected surprises, all of which might not be the kind of surprise you really want. So no matter who you're working for, I found it's very, very important to know everybody as well as you possibly can. And when you come new into an organization, I know that a lot of people are always very anxious to make change, to show that they're in charge and that they're the leader. But for me, I would say really get to know your organization thoroughly before you make any changes at all. And be very clear with everybody who works there, why are you making these changes? Why are you doing it? And only make those changes if they're actually going to improve the organization. Because you may be the leader, but it's not all about you. It's what works best for that school or for that place of work for everybody else. And in that, it's very important, I found, to always be very appropriate and very respectful in how you treat everyone you meet. You never know when you meet people if you're going to meet them again. I'm sure we've all heard the story of the young person who was rushing for an interview. He was very late and he was shouting at the car in front. He was at traffic lights and he was shouting and screaming and swearing at the person driving the car in front because he'd got up too late and he was the person making the mistake. Well, guess what happens? Of course, he gets to the interview to find that the occupant of the car is the person who's just about to interview him. So my lesson learned from that was always be appropriate, always be respectful of everybody you meet, because you can pretty much bet if you're not, you're going to meet them again somewhere else and it might not be a positive experience. So know your audience, essential when you first start. My second learning, I guess, point was be a good listener. Listen really well. I'm sure you've been in a situation where you've been talking to somebody and after a few minutes, you start to realize that they're not really listening to you. They're kind of looking around the room to see, I hate to say it, if there's anybody more interesting to talk to. And I'm sure, like me, you find that really irritating and really quite insulting. So a good lesson for me was to learn to listen and give somebody my full attention so that they felt as though they were the important person and they were really being paid attention to. And I did find from colleagues, they did say to me, you're a good listener because you take an interest in the ideas we have. You may have to say, you know what, it's not going to work. I'm really sorry, we just don't have the funds for it. But you listened. And in the end, that was the most important thing. And I'm surprised at that, but people do remember. They really appreciate being heard. And I do think they respect you much more for listening. So that was my number two kind of big point of learning. Listen to everybody. They've all got lots of ideas, and just because you're the leader, it doesn't mean to say that you know better than them, because often you really don't. They're the people who, in my case in a school, as we would say, were at the chalk face or the whiteboard, whatever you happen to have. But they were the people who knew what was going on, and they were the people you needed to listen to. And as I got more experienced, I guess, I learned from the mistakes, and I made lots of them for sure. I learned that you need to actually make the most of every opportunity that comes your way. Many, many times I said to myself, should I really go for that? Can I do it? But I eventually learned, you know what? You have to have confidence in yourself. You don't always need to check every box that you meet the job description. I can tell you now, men certainly don't do that. They see a job that looks interesting and they go for it, even if they have no experience whatsoever. And you actually have to take on a little bit of that confidence and say, give it a go. And through my career, my own promotion has really just been that. It's been taking the opportunities when they came my way. And although the timing was often not really very ideal, two very small children and a husband who was traveling extremely frequently, there were occasions when I just shut my eyes and pressed send on the application and hoped for the best. Because you can, and you really can, make it work. And I would say particularly when you live in places where there aren't so many opportunities around. And for me, living in a place like Luxembourg, which is very, very small, and at the time when I arrived, there were only 1 or 2 schools, I knew that if I didn't go for those opportunities, they wouldn't come round again. So I had to do it. I didn't regret it. I had moments when I thought, wow, how can I do all of this? But you can. You'd be amazed what you can do. And once you become a leader and you're in that kind of position, then you realize that one of your foremost priorities is to lay the groundwork for other people to shine and to be successful. That's part of your job. Now you're the leader. You need to help others grow and move on. And whether that's moving up in your own organization or elsewhere, it doesn't matter. But giving them that kind of courage and experience, particularly women, is really, really important. And if they move on from your organization to somewhere else, that's fine. Some people, oddly enough, I've found over the years, see staff leaving your organization as a failure, which I've always found very weird. Perhaps they feel as though you come into an organization and you'll have to work there for 40 years to make it successful. Well, change is healthy. So if people move to new positions in new places, great, no problem. New blood comes in the form of new colleagues, new ideas come in, and they take them on to other places. So encourage that. And a very important way of doing that, I found, is to make sure that staff always have the opportunities for professional growth themselves, so that everybody can learn. Provided that professional growth works well with your organization's vision and purpose and direction, that's really, really important to the success of a forward-thinking organization. So as a leader, you really need to encourage your staff. And if that's buying them a little book to read over the summer as a gift, then that's great. If you can send them on courses, like all of you are doing at the moment, even better. But just that kind of helping everybody to keep learning is so, so important. And I think hand in hand with that as a leader goes mentorship. As you become a leader, if you can, you want to be able to try and mentor less experienced colleagues and help them to find the right fit for themselves, where they want to go, where they want to be. And sometimes it's not so easy because, you have to be honest, and you may have to tell people things occasionally that they don't want to hear. We've all had that. We've all heard things that we'd rather someone else didn't tell us. But you know what? That's how you learn. So giving people as much positive feedback as you possibly can, but honest feedback, and coaching them through their own challenges is a helpful experience. And that's very rewarding for all of us, when it works well. So I think that setting up mentorship programs, and hopefully maybe when you finish these courses, as a group of you, you'll be able to mentor one another and keep in touch with the EBU and have mentors there who support your own growth. For me, one thing I found was that I needed to lead from the front through hard work and setting an example that, you only get somewhere through hard work. It could be easy for someone to say, yeah, I don't agree with you. People might criticize me for that. I guess people could say it might lead to you micro-managing everything. But personally, I found that you always need to be really well ahead of the game. You need to be very well prepared, and you need to know your organization so that any questions or challenges that come your way, you can answer them. But at the same time, you do need to be open-minded and ready to look at alternatives when people come up with creative ideas which are better than yours, and they will, and you hope they will, and able to sit down and talk them all through. And through that, I guess my mantra is always, take reasonable risks. As a leader, you can't sit back and just watch the world go by. You have to keep current. I found the most important way of doing that is reading as much as possible, being very, very current with what's going on in the world, but also in your own field of experience. So if you're a teacher leader, then you read as much about the way education is moving. If you're working in a banking organization, obviously you need to know the way the markets are going, and the way inflation and recession works in any kind of economy. You have to be able to do that. But in being current, you do have to take risks which move your own organization forward, even when long-term colleagues don't like change. You have to look at the competition. You have to do that and make sure that you are keeping up with all of that competition. So it's hard, but it's worth it. And we often question, can we actually do this? And I think women do that more than men. Are we really capable? Well, yeah, the answer is yes, always. And you sometimes have to take yourself in hand and say, yes, you know what? Of course I can do this. Absolutely. You have to have the courage of your convictions, and you have to be brave. Do what you know is right, and you have to speak up, and you have to speak out. And it's not always easy to do that. And as I touched on a little earlier, women often don't even apply for jobs because they don't think they can check every single box. So therefore, they think that they'll be out of the running before they get anywhere. Not true. And I don't know whether any of you read anything by Brené Brown. She writes some great books. One of them is Dare to Lead. And I would say from her book, Dare to be Brave. And she would say, go and give it a go. You've probably got a more than 50% chance of taking that position on. So give it a go. As a leader, I know that tokenism is wrong. And the best person should always get the job. But having said that, a diverse staff is a much richer staff. And maybe that takes more work for HR to employ a rich and diverse staff. It's a challenge. And it is one that needs to be successfully met. It's very easy for me also to sit here now that I'm retired and say, that's what you need to do. And that's really important. But it is. It's absolutely essential. And as you go into leadership, you need to surround yourself often with people who are cleverer than you are, know more than you do, and will throw ideas out that everybody can chew over, if you like, and think about. But that diversity of thinking is so, so important. And I mean diversity of skills, diversity of knowledge, diversity of experience, and of backgrounds, of nationalities, of ages. You need a great spread of experience to make that organization successful. I worked at the International School of Luxembourg, and I was delighted that we had more than 20 nationalities on our staff and more than 60 nationalities in our student body, because it brought a wealth of ideas and a wealth of talents and a wealth of traditions as well. which was fantastic for our students to grow up with. And I noticed that we have one of our graduates here today, so I am sure that she could probably tell you about that if we had time. Lovely to see you, Lauren. What I think is also equally important with diversity is equity in all areas as well, and something that's so hard to work with. You know, whether it's promotion possibilities, whether it's compensation for like jobs, honestly, whether it's even down to everybody getting the same size desk. It's really important that equity is the basis of everything you do. And so within that, again, you have to be brave. You have to speak out when you see injustice, and you have to be proactive and do something about it as soon as you know about it. And for me, that's a very important point. And in talking earlier about surrounding yourself with people who can support you like that, you need to build a team around you that keeps you very well informed about your organization. You can't know every single thing about every part of your organization all the time. You may work long hours, but there is a limit, and you have to make sure to keep a little time for yourself. I don't know if any of you have read the book, The Wisdom of Crowds. It's written by somebody called James Surowiecki, and he believes very strongly that, yeah, we have to be prepared as leaders to take difficult decisions, but he very well describes the advantages of collective thinking and opinions. And for me, that was my kind of modus operandi, my way of doing business. I worked on a consensus management basis. Now, you can't always do that because you have to be the decision maker in the end, and you carry the can if things don't work. But having said that, I found the advantage of talking to as many people as I possibly could before I took a decision about something to work very well. Maybe it took me a little bit longer to make the decisions. And actually, when you do that, I'll give you a little tip here. Occasionally, problems sort themselves out and go away. So no harm in taking a bit longer, because I can tell you, just occasionally people see, yeah, you know what, it really wasn't worth worrying about that, and off the problem goes. But I did value the time that I took to seek out opinions and try and see all the sides, new sides of a project that we were going to do before taking the final decision. And then maybe it was a little bit cheeky, I don't know, but then I would seed my thoughts and ideas across the influencers in the school and across the thought leaders in the school before introducing it in a much wider forum, so that when it came to that moment, I had people who were very supportive of the idea and helped their colleagues understand why we wanted to move in this direction. And I found, for the main part, that worked fairly successfully. And it helped me kind of nudge my plans forward. And you know that nudging things forward works much more effectively than kind of going crazy and going in like a very aggressive person, saying this is the way we're going to do things, and you know what, I don't want to hear anything from anybody about this. That doesn't work. People might tell you it does, it doesn't. But of course, the bottom line is that you, as a leader, in the end have to make the decision. The final decision is on you, and the final responsibility is on you, and you have to be okay with that. And if you're not, then I would say leadership is not for you. And not everybody's going to be happy with the decisions. Certainly not everybody was happy with the decisions I always took, and I know they didn't like me always because of the decisions I took. But that's okay. you don't actually go into leadership to be popular or to have lots and lots of friends. That's an important lesson I learned very early on, is that as a leader, not everybody is going to like you. I remember somebody telling me that, one of my colleagues, you know what, Nicki, not everybody likes you. And then they said to me, but you know what, that's okay, it doesn't matter. And it's mostly because you've done something, or you've taken a decision that they weren't happy with. But don't go into leadership if you want to be popular. People, of course, will want to be your friend, but not always for the right reasons, and certainly for many different reasons. And leadership can be a very lonely place. And that is why your own professional development is as important as the professional development of those you lead. You always have to be learning. You always need to be improving. You know, whether you go on a course to learn how to public speak, or you need to go on a course because you're not sure about how profit and loss accounts work. Doesn't matter, keep reading. And if you can, try and go and see some other organizations that are similar to yours and meet their leaders so that you can feed off each other. You can borrow ideas. If I go right back to the beginning of what I was talking about when I said I'd got involved with accrediting other schools, it was a fantastic experience because I went and I saw things happening which I hadn't thought about, and I borrowed their ideas just like they borrowed mine, and I didn't mind. And those leaders became my supporters, and I hope I did a little bit to support them as well, because we all need mentors as well. I've been in the education business for over 40 years, and right until the day I retired, I had several people I valued, not in the school, because often it's much better to keep your friends and your mentors outside your own organization. And I got lots and lots of support and ideas from them, and I'm still in touch with many of them today. They've become my friends. But those are the kind of leaders you need, because it is a very lonely place. So you attend your professional workshops, you attend as many seminars as you can, so that as here today, you're building up a cohort of like-minded people who will be your friends and your mentors for as long as you're actually working in the business that you're in. And I can give you afterwards a few kind of good reads that I think are really valuable as leadership books, not difficult because they're short. And I think we all want to read things that are fairly short. But I would say, finally, and I'm going to stop in a minute in case anybody has any questions or any thoughts, it's also Friday afternoon. I would say, make time for yourselves. You know what? You work to live. It's a cliche, but you don't live to work. Because retirement, as I have found, comes to us all, and you actually want to enjoy that eventually and have that time for yourself. You don't want to be so burnt out that you're too exhausted to do anything. And I think especially with women, because, you know, we're balancing and juggling all sorts of things. And I can tell you, even when your children are grown up, it doesn't make any difference. They take up just as much time. So, you know, enjoy that time, but make sure you keep fit and healthy and you keep that balance, because that lifestyle balance is what will actually make you a better leader. So thank you very much. I hope I've given you just one or two little kind of thoughts for the weekend. And I'm happy to talk about anything that anybody would like to talk about. If anyone's interested in any of the books, I'll put them in the chat in a moment.
Thank you so much, Nikki. This was just amazing. I was able to hear some of it. My network has been.
Shame.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfectly. It's absolutely perfect now.
Yeah, I was just resetting things. Anyway, thank you so much. I think I have to learn from the last part of what you just mentioned about work-life balance. I think that's a really cool. So I think it's a good time to just maybe see if anyone has any questions, if you have any comments or something that you want to add from your personal side, or does this, I mean, it certainly has inspired me. I'm sure some of you feel the same way. So if you want to share something, now is the perfect timing. Come on, who's going to break the ice? We do have a couple of minutes left. We always just need the first hand and then everyone else is jumping in.
Of course.
There you go. Lauren, great.
Oh, hi, Lauren.
Hi. Sorry, I'll just start by saying hi. Hi, Nikki. It's so nice to see
you. Hi, Lauren.
I actually was a student at the International School of Luxembourg with Nikki, so I can attest to her fantastic leadership. And honestly, it's been so nice to see you here. It's been about 10 years now, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah, and I guess I'll share that back when I was a high school student with Nikki, she actually had met with me regarding leadership back in the day and was looking at the time I had wanted to go to be a principal. So was helping review my portfolio for that. And yeah, I'd say that Nikki has still played a huge important role in my professional development, and I am doing something slightly different. I'm actually outside of the school board now, but I'm working with the government of Canada. So it's been, yeah, when Dr. Mully had posted this on his Facebook page, I thought it was a fantastic way to kind of reconnect and to see, I guess, where you are now, Nikki. So thank you so much for everything. And that conversation we had back 10 years ago still plays an important part in my role. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Lauren. That's so kind of you. You're a lovely, lovely person to have at our school. I saw you'd moved.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And if I can mention that Kubra, our marketing specialist, she's been also with the International School and she now works with us. So we're big fans. And we currently have 99 attendees. Also Ramses Kamanda as well.
Ah, yeah. Oh my goodness, small world. Wow.
Yes. So thank you so much for joining in. And yes, if there's more questions, I see some other hands. Go ahead, or comments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for for sharing your experience. It's such a rich experience. I like to ask, particularly female leaders who have retired like you, two questions. One, in everyone's journey, particularly women, you have the good times and you have the not so good times, right? And I want to believe you've had your own fair share of challenging times. What principles, or if you were to look back now, what advice would you have for women, especially when they go through such challenging phases of their lives? What advice would you have for women, leaning on your experience? And then second part will then be, what practical ways can we in what practical ways can we encourage more women in leadership?
I think to go back to your first point, yeah, I certainly did have challenges. Having a pretty much all male board of governors, and I was the first woman director at the school, most definitely had some challenges for sure. But I think you actually have to stick firm. You have to be always polite. Somebody once said to me, you have to kill them with kindness. And you kind of almost do that. You are unfailingly polite, always incredibly helpful, but not prepared to kind of cross those red lines that you are always going to have in your life, your own principles that you stick to, and you're not going to give up on them no matter what. And I think that it's not easy, but you can do it. And sometimes, sometimes I go home at night and think, why am I doing this? But at those times, I just had in my mind, you know what? The sun will rise tomorrow, no matter what. It will be another day. I go back to the importance, maybe I'm going into the second part of the question now, of having mentors and having people that you can actually offload on. My poor husband. But you do have to be able to have somebody who you can go and moan and groan to. You cannot bottle it all up, because I think it would just be too much, would simply be too much. But you just have to have a few people. And we were very lucky that we had an organization of other international schools in the region. And the directors of all those schools met 3 times a year when the students were playing sports. And you had a kind of closed meeting with them, and you could really talk to them about the problems you'd got at the school, and you knew that they wouldn't share them with anyone else. And they may have been through similar things. That's why I said, try and visit other organizations, try and meet people in similar positions, because if they've gone into difficult territory, they may just be able to say to you, you know what, have you thought about that? Have you tried that? So I think trying to get around it through having friends and mentors, it's really very, very hard when you first start. But I think you've got to stick with it. But you have got to be firm. For me, it was always the thing is, I believe that every child could be successful in their own way. Did it mean that they would get the international baccalaureate, which was what our qualification was? Not necessarily, because perhaps that wasn't for them. But I just felt that there was a successful route for all of them. I know not all my colleagues agreed, but too bad. That was the way I believed. And I know that I stuck to that. But you do have those moments. I do remember waking in the night one night thinking, good grief, I've got 1,400 children, 2,800 parents, 300 staff, and I have to keep them all happy. How on earth can I do that? Well, you can't. And so you have to be realistic. You absolutely do your best, but nobody's perfect. And you know what? You learn from your colleagues. So I would say try and find just a few colleagues who you can always get on the phone and say, what on earth do I do about this? And you will almost always find an answer. So I hope that kind of answers your question.
Thank you, Nicki. We have another question in the chat. Benedicta is asking, would you advise one to have a coach within the same organization, or would you advise it would be better to have them outside of your organization?
Personally, I would say outside the organization, especially as you get kind of further up the organization and you get promoted. Yeah, I mean, I was the principal of the secondary school for 20 odd years, and I was very, very lucky that the 2 directors I had were just great. They really helped me, and I could get on the phone and say, oh goodness, what do you think I should do about this? Perfect. When I got to be the director myself, I didn't have anybody to get on the phone to, although I did occasionally actually, I have to be honest, get on the phone to them, even though they'd retired. But I had mentors outside the organization. I had a chap who was a neuroscientist who I'd met through a professional seminar, who was absolutely wonderful. And he came and did some work with my whole leadership team. But he was the kind of guy I could get on the phone to and say, hey, what do you think? Do you think I should do this or not? And that was tremendously helpful. My board chair, just before I retired, I had 2 board chairs who were wonderful. They really helped. I could get on the phone to them. But not everybody in every organization is lucky enough to be in that situation. So I would say you can build a group of mentors outside is better. It's definitely better.
Thank you. Any other questions? You can also use the chat and I will read it, but if not, I think this is such a great inspiration for the weekend, something to think about, something to recap. We do have another question. Lola, go ahead.
Hi, Nicki.
Hi.
It's not a question, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of everyone here when I say thank you for the inspiring talk. It was really fresh and very real, and I think because you have people come and talk sometimes, but they don't make it real, and I think a lot of us, well, I can relate with you in so many ways. You know, for the fact that you've worked across continents, you know, you've worked across sectors, and you know, you're a woman like us, you know, you've kept it very real, very to the point, you know. And I think some of the gaps that I probably have had in my thinking as a leader, as a coach as well, where I coach executives and all of that, you've sort of helped me to bridge some of those gaps. So it's really refreshing. And I think the icing on the cake for me is the list of books you've given, because I'm always looking for a list of books. So that's really refreshing to have. Thank you so much. It just shows how much thought you've put into this and how prepared you were for us. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. You really are. Where are you based, Lola?
I'm in the UK, actually.
Okay, right. Okay.
All right, thank you so much. Any other questions? If not, we can wrap it up. I was thinking Kubra, as the former student, can maybe say the thank you part. Kubra, are you with us? I know she's traveling, so I'm not sure about her connection as well. It is the summer season, so let's see, but I don't know. I don't think she's with us. Anyway, thank you so much, Nicki, for your time. Thank you for putting in the effort to come into our class and impact all of the students who are really all over the world in their parts, struggling with similar issues, right? Because we have so many things that are connecting us as women. And so it was great hearing from you. Oh, Kubra is with us, but she can't unmute herself. Let's, 1 second. Go ahead, Kubra. Kubra?
She's there, but not there.
Oh dear. No.
Don't worry.
Okay, hello, I'm here. Sorry, I was not able to unmute myself. Nicki, you have been always my biggest inspiration as a alumni of ISL. It's so great seeing you and hearing your story once again. I really want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude for being here, for sharing your story with us, for inspiring everyone, and for always inspiring me as a student and playing a massive role in my career. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's all I can say really from the heart. Thank
You're
you.
Wonderful, Kubra. Where are you now? Where are you living now?
In Luxembourg. I'm still in Luxembourg working with
wow.
you. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
Brilliant. Well, it's been just fantastic to talk to you, and I would love to know where all of you are living, because I just love that to find out. But you all need to go and eat supper or do something like that. So
Yes.
have a lovely weekend.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Thank you, students. We'll be back. I'll write announcements about the way forward in the class, and I'll post, of course, this Zoom recording as soon as it gets uploaded. And I wish everyone a wonderful and blessed weekend. Nicki, thank you once again.
You're very welcome, Julia. Thank you. Okay.
Bye, everyone. Bye.
Bye.